Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka 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 podcast.
Baka!
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Baka Baka Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we come together on this podcast like a bunch of nerdy idiots, and we talk about an anime that we watched. We do it like we're a book club. This week, I do want to warn, there's a little bit of more mature content. We watched a more adult in the sexual category anime. It's an ecchi comedy. So if anything over PG-13 is too much for you, you might want to not be here for this one. Though we will be still reining ourselves in. We're not going to be describing anything lewd or anything like that. Plus, it's more work for editing for me if we do. So I'd rather we don't. But we are going to be talking about how not to summon a demon lord. And to do that, I need the help of my co-host. And first off, we have the Bahamut to my Final Fantasy, Jeremy.
You got it right.
I have it
so upset right now.
phonetically written down. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been playing so much Breath of the Wild. It's really good. I know I'm late to this party too, but man, I'm really enjoying it.
I'm glad you are, because I was worried it might be a little too Nintendo-y for your taste.
There's one complaint I have, and that is that the cooking only allows you to have one effect. And so it's almost just like surface, shallow combinations. I miss the Oblivion, Morrowind, Skyrim alchemy system. I'd love to see something like that in there.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly though, like for what it needs, it definitely hits everything. And I've beaten the water beast. I'm in the middle of the fire beast on the way to the podcast tonight. So it's so good. I haven't even opened up half the map yet.
Also, so if you see him on the video looking down, he's got his Switch in his hand, I'm sure. We'll be monitoring. All right. We also have the ultimate Shenron to my Dragon Ball GT. Jason, how are you?
That doesn't sound so bad.
Hey, he was pretty powerful, so
Turned Goku into a child and started Dragon Ball GT.
So in my household, the moment we put our forks down for turkey dinner, the Christmas tree goes up. So my life has been filled with Christmas decorations.
That's the way to do it, man.
In fact, so like I've got a really nice fake tree that we got on clearance like January 15th or something like that, like 3 years ago. And the lights are starting to go out. She's like, I don't like those. Can we unstring it? I was like, it's a fake tree with pre-strung strings. She's like, right, but I don't like these lights anymore. I cut myself so much on those metal, like.
Oh no!
Yeah,
cat attack
got me good here.
Oh,
yeah.
It's not working for the audio people, you know.
Oh, he's just got cuts all over his arms.
Like I got attacked by a cat.
So you need to get a projector that just projects a tree onto the wall.
Well, that's the route Troy would go.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife called Troy lame, actually, the other day. Anyways, how's Troy doing?
Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last time. I'm doing really good. My name is Troy, and I have been catching up on season 3 of Overlord, both as a comparison to the anime we're watching, that we're talking about right now, and for our minisode coming up, which is going to be about isekai anime and traveling to Fantasyland. I'm on the boat now of Overlord. I think it's one of the best world building. I call it the Game of Thrones of anime, and it hasn't done what later seasons of Game of Thrones has done. So it's doing good. I still absolutely hate the main character, but I now understand it's the anime's fault, not the story. Thanks to comments we've received and to digging through Reddit myself. Ainz Ilgon is very well fleshed out in the source material. The anime cuts all that out and uses his inner monologue for jokes still, when also I want to know, why are you literally murdering these innocent people? And
Right.
suddenly then the monologue's gone. That's going to come up in the anime we're talking about tonight, because they actually feature very similar themes and approach very differently.
Yeah.
But someone playing a villainous character in a fantasy world when they weren't a villainous person to start with. So let's go on to talking about our anime. Jason, I'm sorry for you, because I know you watch a lot of these in public.
That was like my one joy every episode.
I got about 3 episodes in. I think I got 2 episodes on the bus, and I found myself hiding myself. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
That's awesome.
I turned it on in front of my children and then watched the rest of it on an iPad in my bedroom, like under the blanket.
Oh.
Not for those reasons.
Oh.
Jeremy, you picked this anime. Let's get your non-spoiler review out of the way.
So I didn't really think it was going to be quite what it was. I was a little surprised. For the first 3 or 4 episodes, I was on board, really enjoying it. It's funny. But it just slowly, with every episode, it got more campy and less. I liked it less and less. By the time I was finished, I was more irritated with the characters than anything else. So not a huge fan of it, actually.
All right, Jason, how about you?
It was okay. I have a guilty pleasure of the harem anime, so it definitely scratched that itch for me, which probably will give it a little better score for me just because of that. But I have to agree with Jeremy on some points. It's like I was hoping that it would be more of the over-the-top comedy in a semi-serious situation with ecchi elements, and it ended up just being a bad adult film that didn't have any skin.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm allowed to say it was an okay power anime, and they could have left out the isekai. Is that his?
Isekai.
Yeah, they could have left out the isekai part altogether, and they still would have had the same story. So,
I guess I enjoyed watching it for multiple reasons, but
2 specifically.
It's kind
2,
of
4, 6, 8 by 2s.
Yeah, it's very shallow. There's a lot of things about this very specific style of isekai anime and ecchi anime that I don't like. I'm not a big fan of the lolly thing, and they had a lot of the lolly, which is young looking girls, and also I'm not a big fan of overpowered main characters when that's not like an aspect of the anime. Like One Punch Man, big fan of, because it's all about how he deals with that, not so much about the fact that he is, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And so I found the main story kind of bland, but I don't think it was bad storytelling or anything. I did think some of the characters were interesting and compelling. Also, I should know, I watched the English dub, and I think I'm the only one who did. I do want to have some conversations about the English dub later.
I'm curious, actually, while we're on that topic, I watched the uncensored Japanese subtitle. Did you watch the censored or uncensored, Jason? Because we might actually have 3.
Yeah, I watched the censored sub,
Okay.
and I went and watched 1 episode of the uncensored dub that I had watched previously as sub. I did not notice any changes except for after the credits, there was like 8 or 10 seconds of just like chest shot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's
that wasn't in the censored.
Is that all they censored out?
Well, there's some other. Apparently, I did a little bit of looking, and apparently there's some other stuff that probably we can't talk about. But
I thought you were going to say research, and the choice of words of I did looking, dealing with uncensored content.
I was looking at all the uncensored stuff.
I spent. Let's just say I spent about 5 minutes on it. But yeah, it was, for me, the stub made it awkward.
I know, and we'll get into that. We need to get into that.
Yeah.
There's an episode you asked us all to watch. I did watch it in both, and I think that's a great time to bring it up.
I forgot.
It's
Sorry.
fine.
It's fine.
You hate. Look. Here's your opinion. You hate the dub.
Thank you. Yeah, you got it right. I could be playing Zelda instead of that.
I think it's safe to say if you are a 14-year-old with restricted internet access, but your parents don't pay any attention to the TV shows you watch, this is the show for you.
You're gonna love it.
I'll give it that.
Who said it? That this was the anime for my 16-year-old self.
That was Troy.
I would have loved this as a teenager. Now I was just like, I'm an adult. I could see this kind of stuff whenever I want. I don't have to watch a TV show and wait for it to get to it.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about the opening and the closing. What did you guys think of those?
Music was okay, but the visuals were what you would expect from a harem anime.
They fit.
Yeah, I saw them maybe twice, and I just skipped them after that. Just like, meh.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I really didn't care too much. Oh God, the outro visuals. I watched that once, and my jaw was just dropped to the floor. Wow, okay, and then I didn't bother.
Yeah, what can we get away with not drawing?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
I nothing really stood out to me. It felt very bland music wise and even style wise. I know what you guys are talking about in the ending though. But I was just whatever.
Technically PG-13.
Technically.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to our spoiler section. Now this is where we get into the dirty bits. Hey!
Okay, hold on. I gotta stop the show. How long have you been holding on to that joke?
Just out of it. Okay, let's keep going.
I doubt that.
I promise. It just hit me. Okay, so spoiler section. Everything is on display here.
Oh yeah,
so I could do this all day. So if you have not seen it and you do want to go see it, please turn off the podcast. Otherwise, we're gonna go ahead. Does anyone know the main character's actual name? Because I just have Diablo written down. I think he says it in the first episode.
I think it's a throwaway name.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He never brings it back up. So our main character is a shut-in gamer who spends so much time in the biggest MMORPG game in the world that he can actually play it as a boss character that other players come and take him on in. And because of this, in a fantasy world very, very similar to the video game, if this sounds familiar, it's because Japan just loves these stories right now. More in our mini-sode. He is summoned to this fantasy world, but he is wearing a very special item that only he has in the game called a magic reflect ring. And so when these two summoners try to enslave him, it reflects back and enslaves them to him. So
question, potential plot hole.
Okay, because I was gonna say I do want to talk about this before we get into the actual characters, because this is the whole setup and premise of the show.
Mm-hmm. Potential plot hole is we see what the process is to actually enslave a summon. When the summon initially arrives, it's not enslaved already. They have to put a stone in their mouth and then kiss the summon. So at what point did they they didn't do that to him? He just appeared and the collars appeared on them.
Kissed him, so I guess we're supposed to assume they had the stone. Yeah, they do kiss him.
Yeah.
Oh.
He shows up and they're kissing him. And he's like, what's going on? But it's also weird that Shira doesn't know the enslavement ritual if she just performed it on Diablo.
Yeah. Okay, no, I guess it's there then. I must have just been confused.
Okay, I just wanted to say that, when you come into an anime and the concept is, I have two women slaves, it's like, oh gosh, what are we watching? And I thought they handled it really well. At no point was he like, I'm going to control you. He says things like, I own you, to play off of. But he never actually means it. They get to do whatever they want. And he's actively, from minute one, trying to help them get the collars back off. He does not want to have slaves. And they just don't really deal with slavery as a slavery thing. So even though we will use the word slave, I actually thought it was handled well in this anime.
I would agree. And also around that plot hole, I think we only ever see master slave. So if both of them were kissing him, like how can they? Would two collars appear on him if it had worked? Like, do they share power of the collar? And if it's just one collar, why wouldn't it only be reflected once instead of twice? So yeah, there's a lot of.
So let's talk about our main character, Diablo, shut-in gamer who now is in a super powerful demon lord body. What did you guys think?
I think I liked him the best for a couple of reasons. I really liked. I could kind of identify with the shut-in part, like the lone gamer. That hasn't been my entire gaming experience, but I've definitely been through those lulls where it's just me, even if I'm playing a multiplayer game. But he tends, like, even throughout the story, he keeps everyone at arm's reach. One, because he's playing the part, he's trying to like hype himself up, even though he is super powerful. But two, like he doesn't want to let anyone into his
social circle.
It will break through his walls, right? Become his friend. Even the girls that are close to him, like he tries to get close to them, but he won't let them close to him. But because he's starting to care about these people more and I liked the moments where like he runs into the bar and he's like, I need help. I need to ask help, but I've got to keep this persona on. What do I do? And there's this huge internal struggle while he's trying to like go for this emergency. So I did like those moments.
That was the moment I was like, thank you for doing something that Overlord did so wrong. Like I totally felt that was perfect. Okay, I need to be this, but I actually need this, and I don't know how to connect the two. And seeing that struggle internally, I was like, thank you. Like, I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The inner dialogue that we got to hear so frequently was very helpful with him. I like the idea of a character showing up, the protagonist showing up and being super powerful. I actually find that to be pretty entertaining. Yeah. I also like the loner. I mean, that's been a thing with Log Horizon and Sword Art Online the first season. Enjoyed the first season. And
not the 27 others.
No. And so I kind of liked where it was heading with that, but by the latter half, it just seemed like he was so fake to me. Like he was so constantly in these situations that were clearly contrived, and yet we're supposed to believe that he was successfully convincing himself that the situation maybe wasn't so promiscuous as it was. It's a wand, it's a wand, it's a wand, right? I don't want to get into it too much, but some of the things that he was doing.
Use the shocker.
Yes, right? There's absolutely no way that you can justify him being who he thinks he is and still have that scene unless he's crazy.
You have to get close to the source of the
magic. Right. Make a hole in her belly to get to the source of the magic, right? Like
we're gonna giggle a lot tonight, guys.
So okay.
Yeah,
I just want everyone full warning ahead.
It's so ridiculous and campy, and it's all because the whole thing's written around putting him in weird situations, and it's very different from the way manga artist assistant was put into situations, right? Because manga artist assistant, he didn't have any complexity to his personality, and so there was no muddiness. There was no I have to believe that this character is, a great moral character. He knew what he wanted. He just was too scared to get it. This guy's like, I'll pretend she's not a person. She's just a wand. And then I can do whatever I want to her body, whatever's necessary to accomplish what I need to do. And it's not really happening. There's nothing sexual, but we're all screaming in sexual noises and doing Saiyan power-ups during it. And like, so yes. So I had a little trouble with him for that reason. He was the center of the campiness that I didn't like.
Yeah, I understand that. Like, there's the scene where he wakes up and he's grabbing them and he's like, "Oh, I can't stop doing this." But then there's another scene where like grab her and he's like, "Oh, how dare they ask me to grab her?" And it's like, wait,
yeah,
do you want to grab them or not?
Yeah.
Please make up your mind.
Yeah,
I do get that. I actually did really enjoy the character though. He would have been my favorite character if hero hadn't arrived. We'll talk about it later. Diablo, I thought was great. That I love the idea that he's so socially inexperienced that he has to play his game character. That I'm like, okay, I get that. That's the only way you know how to connect to people, and how that presented complexities to him and problems to him, and even the fact that he doesn't really want it to do it that way. I love the moment when they're making potions where he says, I wish I could talk to them not as Diablo. And I like that stuff. So even though he was overpowered, which I kind of find, like I said, it's just not for me. I enjoyed the character. I also enjoyed that he was physically attractive, because that made sense why two hotties want to climb in bed with him, and that they want him. It's such a staple that like regular everyman Tenchi Muyo is wanted by 10 women.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, whoa, I mean, what has Tenchi got going for him?
He's got that little braid tail, just like Anakin.
Diablo is hot, and I was like, good for him. He works out. He clearly had worked on his abs, and they clearly notice.
Right?
Yep.
I need to give a disclaimer. We are gonna giggle like immature little boys.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
It doesn't matter. You can be over 30 and you'll still.
I was gonna say no saying shocker all night, and then we've already done it.
Too late. What a shocker!
All right. If you don't know what that is, do not look it up. And, you're doing it right now, aren't you? Okay. Let's talk about the first, the cat girl that summoned him, Ren. Her character. Your guys' thoughts?
I liked her because she was one of the more complex characters. I watched her in the dub, and I couldn't stand her.
I know. I'll talk about that.
Yeah. So, but I liked that she had the secret, but she cared enough about the people around her that she didn't want to involve them, but she knew that she needed their help, but she also didn't want to be indebted to people. But again, she wanted to help the people around her best she could. I felt she was one of the more noble characters throughout the story.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Even throwing herself into danger actively to protect other people.
Right.
There was one problem with her that I had, and that was that it seemed like the story arcs for her character development were very, very quick, especially in regard to other characters that get introduced in the latter portion of the season. It's like she just immediately makes decisions that I would have liked to have seen stretch on. Like maybe if you'd stretched this whole season out into 2 seasons, you could have proper character development. And I think that she would have been more believable to me. But I enjoyed her until about halfway through, a little bit farther than that. And then she just kind of seemed to fall apart as a character and became more of a device.
Oh, absolutely. I'd agree with
that. For the most part, I really liked her. I liked her better than the other character we're talking about next. Sure. Because for the reasons Jason said, there was more complexity to her. I understood her decision making. She wasn't just all in just for being friends, that kind of stuff. I liked her English dub a lot. In fact, she's one of the things I laughed at the most, because in the English dub, when she's being defensive, she puts on a Valley Girl, Barbie sounding kind of voice with like, oh my God, tough crowd.
Oh my God.
And these little comments she makes throughout the entire anime almost always made me chuckle. And when she's being sincere and stuff, she doesn't do it. It goes away. But when she gets angry or defensive, she puts on this personality and like, oh my God, get away from me. And I was into it. It was unique. It's not something you hear a lot in anime. And I know Jason has a problem with that cliche of character, right?
Mm-hmm.
That fair? But
I'm not a fan either.
And normally I agree, but it's like I said, it's not something I see in anime. And just because it's not a character trope that I like doesn't. I thought how they used it, that it was a defensive barrier for her.
Mm-hmm.
I thought was good.
Yeah, the same scene in Sub. She goes, Diablo's like warning her, hey, be on lookout, be on guard, from inside their room, and she's leaving. She's like, in the Sub, she's like, farewell. and leaves. And then in the dub, she's like, "Okay, bye." I was just like,
and that made me laugh.
Oh.
Okay, bye.
Just
in my notes, I have little comments she made the whole time that I just, wow, I'm proud. Sorry, all I heard was duties. Okay, the next character, Shira, the elf girl with 2 big assets to the team. What do you guys think of her?
she definitely was the shallowest. If you have Ren as the most complex, and the best way to describe her would be trope on top of trope with 2 tropes.
2 tropes. 2 great big tropes. Yeah, she was just empty.
I thought her brother was more appealing, and I wanted to know more about him and her like background and where she comes from and that society. And
appealing is an interesting word, though.
Yeah.
Intriguing? Could we go with intriguing?
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Okay.
But like this just backhanded, just to slough off an entire society, was, I don't know, felt more shallow. Just like the character.
Yeah, it seemed like she had only one real goal, and that was to be Diablo's number 1. Like that was her big goal. I mean, she states outright that her goal is to prove herself to be independent, live on her own, and then later to start a coffee shop. And I'm like, Tokyo Ghoul, okay. But honestly, her only real goal that she displayed through action and behavior in the anime was just to get Diablo to pick her. And that was it. There was nothing more to her.
Did we see her in any combat besides in the intro?
No.
And that was a shame, because there was that whole scene of her with the bird, and she hit that coin from so far away. I'm like, that is a brilliant skill. When is she going to be able to use something like that in combat? And I was hoping they were going to riff on that. Like, there was some sort of combat scene. She couldn't see the enemy, but she knew they were over there, and nothing like that. I didn't see her use her bow once besides that scene.
Yeah, I mean, other than being nice to look at, she's drawn very well. I didn't feel she brought a lot to the anime.
She brought physics, great physics.
Yeah, and also because almost every female in this, they decide not to give great physics, and
that was unusual, wasn't it?
Well, except for the dog girls in the adventurer's house.
Yeah, there are
red, blue, yellow,
but there's so many more. There's one lolly type in the harem for those people that like that kind of thing. And to be fair, no one here is under. I mean, I think to us they're very much underage, but no one here is like a freaky child age. Even the most flat-chested, lolly characters are like I'm the head of the Adventurers Guild, and
right.
I'm an ancient demon. But it was kind of weird, and like I said, not a big fan. So it was nice to have someone who was big and bouncy there, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. Counterbalance.
But personality wise, she was just there.
Yeah,
and because Ren made me laugh, Shira wasn't my comic relief.
Shira was a comic relief in the sub, I think.
Right. Yeah, and that's how what I think was intended, but it didn't really work.
And I think the problem was that Shira was damsel in distress 24/7, and I think that just kind of got tiring.
Yeah, because even when she wasn't directly threatened, she displayed no agency of her own to deal with threats to anyone.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so after he is summoned, he follows them into town. They decide to work together to try to get the slave collars removed. And he's,
I did love the scene of, hey, make up and shake hands. No, I'm not make up and shake hands.
Yeah, that's when we find out they have the slave collars, because they're forced to do whatever he says, which he never uses again. And right, fair enough. Yes, there was one moment, but that was the saver.
It was.
He never exploited it.
Yes,
that's true. That is true
for personal gain.
He doesn't have to. The situations are contrived such a way that all of his personal gain just gets shoved in his face.
You got to pour magic in this. Never mind.
That's right.
So they first meet with the head of the Mages Association, whose name is Celestine, or just Celeste.
Yes.
I think both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's a friend of Ren. She's helping her with a secret issue that Diablo will find out in a minute. And she's like, "Oh, that's weird that happened with the collars. Okay, so good luck, and I'll see what I can do." But she also has a mage with her who starts talking crap to Diablo. And you got to understand about Diablo's character is that he's putting on the persona of I am a demon lord. He's not. He's wearing a headband with horns. But that's what
it's an item from the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got stats.
Yeah, it's a cosmetic item, I thought, that he just puts on his character.
Oh, it's only cosmetic?
That was my impression. I don't think it's that. I think he only mentions the headband itself in one episode, like really quickly, too.
Yeah. Normally there's like a helmet of some kind. I just assumed that was it, but it could be purely cosmetic.
Yeah, I assumed it was just gear. But
it could be either. I just thought it was cosmetic because there were actual demons in this world that have real horns.
It certainly makes it funnier.
And so there is racism in this world. There's the humans and there's everything else, and so the humans, of course, don't like everything else. So this mage talks crap to him, and he does his Diablo. How dare you talk to me? When really he is this socially inept nerd who's like, why is he talking like that to me? What did I do?
He's actually like, that guy's so intimidating.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to find out Ren's secret, he takes her to their shared room they have to share because there's not enough room in the inn, even though multiple characters show up and get rooms in this inn later.
Yep.
So whatever. And he interrogates her. Thoughts on this scene?
It was. What did he say? I don't know. It was awkward.
We don't have to go too much into it. I don't want to describe it for sure.
It was him attempting to not be sexual, but it ended up being that way, even though it was like constantly going, I don't want this to be like this. I'm just trying to get information out of her, but man, am I turning her on. So I guess the best way to describe it is it was awkward.
Mm-hmm. There was, I think in this scene, we talked a little bit about it in chat about how, is in the dub, you said that it really seemed very well like he was dealing with a cat in his mind. He was convincing himself she was a cat.
Yeah.
And that you didn't think in the sub it was as convincing.
Yeah, and I do need to make a little bit of correction on that because you did point out that. So when this anime first started, I watched the first episode once in sub, and then I saw there was a dub, and I was like, I wonder how that plays in the dub, and I just put it back on and watched it again in the dub, and then watched it again for the podcast in the dub. And when I was thinking back to that scene when I saw in the sub, I'm like, man, that was very different. Mm-hmm. There are differences, but they weren't quite what I thought they were. I thought that it was more the focus on it's a cat, it's a cat, it's a cat, when it's a little bit different than that. But go ahead and say what you wanted to finish.
Yeah. So because of with that conversation, I actually didn't mind this scene because I thought, okay, this is interesting. I can get behind him being completely oblivious this one time. But then when they repeated that formula over and over again, I look back on it now with a little bit of irritation. Like, yeah, that was just the start of what you were going to do here.
That makes sense. In the dub, the difference where they make little extra comments that aren't in the sub. They say everything that's in the sub, but then they also add extra little stuff. And I think it's to kind of smooth.
No, they say that in the sub.
No, they're more jokey comments.
Oh, okay.
There's more like, oh man, I just love rubbing this ear, like little tiny additional details, and I think it's just to kind of smooth the moment for American audiences and our culture versus their culture. But there's like I said, there's more thoughts coming on the dub, but we're gonna wait for the potion making scene. Mm-hmm. He finds out that she has the soul of an actual demon lord inside of her, and that if she dies, it'll be reborn, and she's basically cursed, and her family's always been cursed with this, and she wants help to get rid of it. And he's like, okay, I'll help you. I'm going to do what I can to help you. So that's kind of the moment she falls for him, I think you could say.
Which I thought was okay, but it was a bit too fast for me. Like, all he gave her was words at that point, and yet, but maybe she was operating on a high. So
I feel one episode's pretty standard for falling in love in a harem anime.
You do have a point there.
And it also depends on her previous experience. Like, maybe every single time she's ever mentioned Demon Lord in my belly, people run away.
That's true too. Yeah.
And if this is the first time someone didn't run, like that, yeah, that could be emotionally charged for someone.
Okay, that's reasonable.
And then after this, that rude mage comes up to him and is like, he's drunk. He's like, I'm gonna kick your butt. And he summons a level 30 salamander that's gonna raise the town. And Diablo's like, level 30? Level 30? So weak. I'm level 150. What are you doing? And he just destroys it in a single blow, which is, again, to show us, hey, our character is OP.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which I loved that scene. I am all about the power anime, unfortunately. Like I keep hearing terrible things about Sword Art Online, so I just haven't seen it. But like this scene where like the huge, massive looking, just monstrous beast, flames everywhere, and then like he's not even touched. I'm like, yeah.
See, for me, I prefer the underpowered. I prefer the Konosuba ReZero approach of, oh my god, I am so in over my head. I'm just a normal guy. What do I do here? I love that gritty, take on it. But
I think they scratch different itches for me because I like them both.
I was just going to say I do like them both. So
yeah.
Okay, so the next morning he wakes up in bed with them, and that will be a common reoccurrence. This is when he gets to squeeze certain parts of them. I will say, for as much molesting goes on in this, there's a lot of consensual stuff that goes on in this, which is refreshing for anime. I think a lot of animes that are ecchi, a guy falls on girl and squeezes her for way too long, and then he's like, "Oh, I didn't mean to."
I'm so sorry.
most of the time, the girls are like, "Oh, okay, squeeze me. We gotta squeeze me. Let's get squeezing."
No,
this is not one of those scenes, though.
No, I think that's one of the things that helped me as well with this is like that. At no time did any of the girls say, "No, don't touch me again," or "No, I really didn't like that." It was, if there was ever a no, it was not yet. You have to choose me first.
Right.
Like, so they all wanted him.
These girls all wanted it. That's right.
And it's not like, oh, look the way she's dressed, she wants it. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying quite definitely,
literally,
like they're saying, yes, take me, but you have to choose me.
Which, again, for this type of anime, I found refreshing. I was like, good. Two people that are into it want to do it. That's fine. That checks all boxes. Let's go.
Yep.
You may proceed. Papers, please.
They head to the Adventurers Guild. We find out that Shira is a level 30, because at the Adventurers Guild, when they sign up, they get to touch a mirror. And
this is my favorite part.
Yeah, the signing of the blood contract. You have to give him his blood. Jason, why don't you tell us what happens when he gives him his blood?
Yeah, so he's like, just a little cut, just a little cut. He nearly chops his finger off, and like 4 liters of blood spurt out, and then he just like slams it on the paper, like half the paper is like covered in blood. And that was what I was hoping from most of the anime. This kind of over the top, just kind of like extreme from normal storytelling. I was really hoping for more of this comedy, because this was the one that this is the only time I laughed out loud in the whole thing. So
well, and it worked so well because it made him a convincing demon lord too. Like, it fit so good.
Right.
In the dub, he yells out, "I hit the bone!"
Oh,
which I loved.
See, it still gets me.
After so Shira is level 30. We find out Ren is a level 40, so they're very weak compared to him. And actually, when he touches the mirror, it just breaks. And the Guildmaster comes, who is Sylvie, who is
Our lolly.
the most lowly, but also maybe
Yeah.
the most mature of all the characters.
So far.
Loves alcohol.
Yeah. So thoughts
Yeah.
on Sylvie, our guild master?
I did like her attempt at, hey, you're so powerful that there's nothing I can give you that's going to even like be respectful to even offer you.
Yeah.
You should probably go somewhere else. I did like that about her, but like, I don't know, she felt kind of background character, I guess, except for her alcohol drinking scene.
Oh my god. Yeah. She was very pragmatic. I enjoyed that about her. She had interactions even with somebody who had kind of presented himself as a sort of a villain for the show. And just the way that she behaved in all her interactions except the drunk scene was very professional and very intelligent. Like, it did not match her appearance at all.
I don't know if I fully agree, because actually one of my issues was that I felt like she was kind of wishy-washy on the whole sexuality of everybody's relationship. Like, she's telling Shira, like, strip down to exactly what I wear and then jump on top of him. That'll get him going. And then she's bringing him alcohol in the middle of the night alone, and then stuff is happening. Like, I was like, I don't get what you're wanting. Are you flirting? Are you being just professional? She's very casual in the way she talks in the dub. Everything is super casual. Like, hey, like, chill, man. It's gonna be fine. I didn't. She even makes the comment one time, I didn't come to ask you to play D&D.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, what? Wait, why would they? Never mind.
They know about that? I thought that she was coming down to maybe try and get some information out of him. Maybe he'd be more open to conversation when he was tipsy, drunk. But she certainly got derailed if that was her pragmatic intention. But I did send that quick snapshot of like her grinning over the beer that she was drinking, because it's pretty clear, she's got something she's planning on. So.
Just to backpedal just a tiny bit, I was really upset that we didn't get more for the Mage Guild leader. Like, she seemed super interesting. Like, her backstory, why she had to build this like tower, how she's powering it. Like, I really wish she played more of a role in this entire thing, and unfortunately, she just ends up being a plot device, which kind of it was just upsetting.
I suspected she might have been a villain for a little while.
I was hoping like something would appear, because like that's what she was. She was portrayed as the I'm helping, but for my own devices because I'm an evil, and it just didn't pan out.
If she ended up being a villain, I would have flipped over a table. I'll be honest with you. I think the world building in this anime is terrible, because it's like they're so scared to add more characters. They literally are flipping every character to villain and then back to not villain. Like, hey, okay, he's going to be villain for these 2 episodes, and then okay, they're okay again. And the first time that's fine, but after like 3 or 4 times, I'm like, okay, literally some of them have to be bad guys. Someone has to be a bad guy, or just make some bad guys. Like, what are you doing? I was saving that complaint for later, but since
we'll bring it up again.
They're sent on a mission to go deal with a giant snake. We find out there is no fast travel in this world. That I liked. That's something that they don't usually call out when they go to gaming worlds. That the fast travel's just gone, and they have to walk. But it ends up being a ruse. The Elf Kingdom is there to take back Shira because she is the princess of the Elf Kingdom.
Apparently, she needs to bear a child.
Yeah, she's
to someone called Nissan, like the car.
I mean, okay.
At this point, that's all she's saying. I don't want to bear Nissan's child, and I'm like, no. No, don't go here.
Yeah, so she doesn't want to go back. She wants to live her own life. She doesn't want to be betrothed. And so Diablo sends them away. We find out that grumpy mage guy was in on this. He's the one who actually helped the elves find him. But Diablo overpowers them. I did like, so right around here, Diablo starts talking about power leveling and, why is everyone so weak in this world and I'm so strong? And the realization he eventually comes to is that they only get one life to level with. They can't go level, die, level, die. When you only have one life, you have to be much more careful with it. And that was actually probably my favorite explanation for why a main character would be so overpowered in a video game world.
I did like that a lot.
Yeah.
I also loved the power up of the arrow. And he's just like, this is like the arrow that was passed down from generations that is going to smote you. And then it...
Yep.
And doesn't he say, like, that's the arrow everyone has in the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like, well, it's funny, too, because he's, like, looking at the other arrows that they first fired at him. He's like, are these just throwaways? Like, nobody uses these.
And then when they get back, Shira tries to show her appreciation, and Ren walks in and stops that from happening.
Yeah. Yep.
I did love the bison kick that Ren did to Shira. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The Street Fighter bison kick.
Yeah.
Just both feet midair.
See, and I thought that was going to be what this anime was, that both girls would be trying to flirt with them, and then the other one would burst in and stop them. And then it very quickly becomes, you know what? I'm cool with you being cool with it,
It's like the princess and the space pirate from Tenchi Muyo, right? Ryu.
Right, always being competitive. They get to a very non-competitive place very quickly in this.
Yeah.
My favorite character's coming up, guys. So they get another job from the Adventurers Guild, and they run into a golden knight who
the friend of all women.
Friend of all women who confronts them. His name is Emil. He is literally my favorite character. I thought he stole every scene he was in, and it doesn't hurt that he's voiced by the English voice actor for Bakugo from My Hero Academia. Guys, thoughts on Emil?
I loved him. I thought he was great.
Yep.
He was a little irritating at first, but it got really charming for some reason. Usually it's in the reverse where it starts charming and gets irritating. And I think it was just because even though he was an egomaniac, it didn't prevent him from being compassionate and caring and, there for his friends, there for justice. Like, he was definitely a righteous, good knight. But he was a little bit of an egomaniac that loved women.
Yeah, there was the fact that he actually got to demonstrate that it wasn't all just bluster. That really made him an interesting character. If he had never got that opportunity, I don't think I would have enjoyed him as much. Plus, later there's moments where he kind of winks that he's a little bit brighter than he might seem. He may realize threats are greater than he can handle, but he's going to go ahead and carry through and be determined anyways.
I did love that he's like, wait, is he doing a charge move from this distance?
Yeah.
so stupid.
He was like,
why would you do this?
Even the point where he's like, he's got to be faking. This has got to be a fake move to throw me off guard. I won't fall for it. And then he does the move. Why would you do that move? Exactly what you guys said. When we first met this character, I'm like, oh, here's the guy who's like, I'm the greatest hero, but we turned out he's really a selfish slimeball, and he wasn't. He was very sincere about what he believed in and what he wanted to do, and he was willing to sacrifice himself, not for any compensation or reward. And I absolutely love that when he captures those evil bounty hunters, he's like, I'm going to reform them. And I'm like, you know what? That sounds terrifying.
Really? That's what it said in the dub?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, no, that's what he did in the sub.
I didn't catch the word reform. I thought he was going to go punish them, is what I understood.
Well, no, if you pay more attention to the scene, even in the sub, he talks about, I'm going to teach these guys to basically respect women and become good guys.
Yeah, because the girls were so surprised by what he said that they actually asked him in the sub, you're going to go kill them?
He's like, no!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in the dub, I'm going to reform them. And they all cry out, kill us!
Please.
That's awesome.
So yeah, he ended up being one of my favorite characters for for those reasons. They, for some reason, Rem can't go. Is this? Yeah, Rem has to stay behind. And is it because she has to meet with Celeste?
Yes.
No, she didn't have to meet with her. She just didn't want to owe her because this next thing is a special gift mission from Celeste. Right?
Oh, right. Because of
she's
the,
like, I don't
because
want
of
to owe
the
her.
salamander event.
Yeah. I won't. I refuse to owe her anything, so I'm going to stay behind.
Okay, that makes sense. So just Shira and Diablo go, and they're basically delivering food to a bunch of knights stationed at a bridge that are about to be attacked by what's called the Fallen. And I thought it was interesting that there are demons in this world, and they're just regular citizens, and then there's Fallen, and they're evil.
This really confused me. Including the character design for the Fallen. Like, all of the Fallen are like these hulking beasts and monsters and stuff, and then there's a sexy girl.
No, that's not how I understood it. Like, yeah, that's how they portrayed it. But the way I understood it was Fallen was not a creature type or a race. Fallen was a distinction or a clan.
But they almost all seem to have tails. Tails seem to definitely be a part of it.
Well, they were all beasts that had tails, yeah, but I mean, you could be part of the Fallen without being a beast.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, because there's a scene at the end where a human is clearly helping the Fallen, and they're like, that's not a Fallen, that's a human. They're drawing a race distinction.
Maybe, yeah. I can see
Plus, every one of them looked more beast than human, except the important girl, the
girl
cute
ones.
girl. Yeah,
there's two girl ones that look more human than beast.
Well, yeah, but one of them is like, she's an exception just because of where she comes from and everything. Like, she's special already. I can kind of ignore that.
Okay,
but this other one, I'm like, she's just out of nowhere. I don't know her backstory. I don't know why she looks like she does. It's so weird.
Okay,
so weird.
Because of Shira and Diablo realizing these knights won't leave against a fight they're unmatched. And he points out, like, Fallen are boss fights in his game. And so 100 Fallen showing up is crazy. So he decides he's going to stay behind and defend this bridge. And at the same time, Celeste is visiting with Ren, and she apologizes for the rude maid. And she's like, yeah, I fired him. Well, that guy shows up. And he's like freaking out. He's like, how could you fire me and ruin my life? And
like, meth's not that bad.
And he pulls out a dagger and stabs himself and becomes a Fallen. I guess it was more like a summoning and replaced him. I don't know. It's kind
the
of
dagger
weird.
was the Fallen,
right? And when he stabbed him, he became that Fallen. So he actually is dead. He didn't like get a Fallen form. He died and gave his body to this monster.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then meanwhile, Diablo is fighting off Fallen, and he's trying to. This is something that I want to comment, because we had a little bit of discussion coming up about Diablo's kill, not kill, mercy rules for this character. At first, he doesn't seem to be killing them. He's literally just smacking them away. Like, I'm so powerful, quit coming at me. I'm holding the bridge.
Not here. The way it came across in the sub was, there are so many of them, I don't have the MP to kill every single one of them. And I need to have a trump card in case something comes. So I will scare them into not crossing. Is what I got from that scene.
Yeah, but I do agree that in the first one, at least, that he knocked back, that we saw clearly he didn't kill it when it hit the wall. It looked around.
Yeah.
So I got the same impression that he wasn't killing them initially, but he definitely was doing that to conserve his mana. And try and be as effective as possible.
Then he's confronted by the leader of this group, Edelgard, and this is kind of the demon girl or the fallen girl that we were commenting about. She is literally where I was going to bring up the world building thing. Like, hey, she's a villain, but we're going to keep making her part of the harem because we don't have enough characters to do both. And just do both. Make more characters. It's okay. Overlord sends 100 new characters per episode at me. I can handle a few more. Guys, your thoughts on Edelgard, the character herself, though, and any other thoughts you want to share?
I have mixed feelings about it. I kind of liked her better as a bad guy. And I loved this fight scene between those two. Even though she was obviously underpowered compared to him, this fight scene was pretty great because you got a lot of the rules of the world in this particular fight scene.
It's his first time to take damage, right?
Right. He's like, oh, that's what damage feels like. Like, that was so cool. Of course, it only took him to a knee. And then he was like, huh.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys noticed, I loved the active healing effects. When he would take damage, you would see like the little red streaks like turn green and then like fade.
Yeah.
That was super cool. But yeah, this whole fight scene between them was great. Her as a character, I don't think she got enough time to be anything more than just a flat background character.
I really enjoyed the perspective that got emphasized, the difference between her and one of the other Fallen that shows up later that's very powerful, towards the real Demon Lord. How she's got this loyalty that it doesn't really matter what the Demon Lord wants to do. If the Demon Lord is alive and is the Demon Lord, she is loyal to that creature. Mm-hmm. And that to me made her interesting because of the other guy's presence. Without
the Fallen that was like, no, the Demon Lord's supposed to fulfill this purpose. If they don't fulfill that purpose, that's not a Demon Lord.
We got to hit the reset button, right? And so to me, that kind of gave her some perspective, gave her some interesting shape. But other than that, she was nothing more than character design. I enjoyed the character design. She was a nice to look at. That's about it.
Yeah,
she was so quiet and like impassive to everything as well. So there was very little opportunity for her to show much of a reaction.
Right. And while I am using her as the reference point of world building, of all the characters that actually go through very similar things, I think hers is the best because hers made sense. The Demon Lord that I summoned, that's my goal. And then once that happens, the Demon Lord wants to do this, so I'm not doing that bad thing anymore. Her flipping made more sense than most other characters.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree.
I still don't fully agree with Diablo being like, you know what? You can hang out with us. It's cool.
Yeah.
That's a little. But, I mean, for a starter villain in the series, I thought she was cool.
I liked also that when she approached him, he's like, "Why didn't you ride your mount all the way over here?" And she's like, "It's normally a good mount, but it didn't want to approach you." He's like, "Oh, the mount's smarter than you are." I liked those little interesting sequences where, yeah, she did get a little tiny bit of personality.
But and like
so
that,
little, though.
That moment where she finally does her big strike, he notices, oh, you're going all out because this particular move takes your life pool.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Okay.
This white
Word reaches Diablo that Ren is running away from a Fallen attack, or basically a Fallen has appeared in the city. And he knows Ren's in danger. He knows that Ren is the goal because he's found that out from Edelgard, right? Didn't she say something about it? That they're coming to the city to resurrect their Demon Lord, and he's like, "Oh, they want Ren."
Well, and also he knew from Ren giving the secret to him,
right?
So
he decides to go all in with a single blast, and he wipes out the entire army except for Edelgard, who manages to survive while her top does not.
Weird.
Yeah.
Strange. And then while he doesn't have quick travel, his spell of return,
he doesn't know if it's going to work.
Right. He tries it and he returns to the city though.
I think the one part I didn't like is he returned right where he needed to be, not like back to his room, like where he last slept. Or back to the hall where he last ate, or maybe like a save
in the alley
in a random alley, Unless it was linked directly to one of his slaves, and he could teleport to his slave.
That's a good possibility, but that wasn't expressly.
No, it was not.
I don't think this anime is taking itself seriously enough to think of that.
yeah,
that's my guess.
Probably right.
Emil actually saves Ren first from the Fallen and basically is taking the damage for her.
And nearly dies from it, too.
Yeah. Again, this is actually
A lot of others do.
This is actually the moment he became my favorite character because I was like,
Mhm.
oh, you're legit.
Mhm.
This is when he proves himself. And then Diablo comes and basically wipes out this fallen. Now, I thought this was a missed opportunity because this fallen begs him for mercy, and he obliterates it anyway. Technically, banishes it to a hell world or hell scape, right?
It's like an empty dimension.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's my idea. Anyway.
That's your hell.
I actually really like the scene because he shows up, everyone's like, super happy to see him. He basically like wrestling tag teams. Emil, like, my turn. And Emil's like, okay, you're good. It just collapses.
Yep.
So my complaint, and it's not really much of a complaint because I don't think maybe there's room for it in a comedy anime, but I thought this would be a good place to put. I'm used to just kicking video game characters' butts, slaying them left and right, killing, and now here's a guy who's begging for mercy, and I killed him anyway. How does that make me feel that I caused an actual death?
I think this scene was not that opportunity, and the reason I say that is because you had a monster, an obviously drawn monster, in process with intent to kill one of your best friends of this particular world you just showed up in. And also one of the guys you like that was protecting her is lying dead, bleeding to death on the floor. I think this isn't the time for that
I
particular.
agree. Why have the monster like beg for mercy and forgiveness and that kind of stuff?
Because he doesn't want to die.
Just for realism.
I get that. And the other thing is, right after the scene, we were shown that like we buried the dead in the city, and like there were actual repercussions to this battle. And I thought, oh, he's gonna have to realize like this isn't just a game world. Like this matters. This costs lives. Everything is on the line when these things happen. But instead, we go to he's really tired from his magic points, and he has to rest for 10 days. Unless you find a way to recharge his MP. Which doesn't happen here.
Best experiment.
Oh, hey, Jeremy. I did want to ask. Does this scene prove that any magic he reflects, he instantly learns? Or did he already know those spells? He was just showing off.
I think he knew.
I assumed he knew them. But it would be interesting if that was the case.
I was wondering that because there were a couple times, and I don't remember the exact scenes. This was not the only time that he reflected the magic and then he used that same spell. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, is it because he's so high level he just knows all the spells and he's showing off? Or, I just learned a new spell.
Yeah, I bet you he's like a wizard in D&D where like you just go through and fill your grimoire out.
The proof I would need for that, Jason, for me to believe that is there's very few attacks or spells he sees he doesn't recognize from the game. But there are a few where he's like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And it freaks him out. If one of those he reflected and then used it, I'd be like, oh, for sure he can learn. But everything else, he's like, oh, I know what that is. Totally know what that is. Oh, you're going to use that move. Okay. And so when he can do it, I just assumed one of the reasons he knows it so well is it's in his grimoire as well.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then I just used the word grimoire because Jeremy did, and I meant spellbook because I'm not that big a nerd.
Come on. You know you want to say grimoire.
You're not fooling anybody.
Nope.
And then so he finds out if he runs out of MP, he gets very exhausted, he gets very grumpy, and he just wants to lie around for long periods of time. And then after the end of the 10 days, Sylvie comes with their next job request, which is Shira's people are demanding she come back or there will be a war. And he's like, I'm not doing that. She's like, no, you have to prevent the war. I don't care how you do it. Mm-hmm. And that is their next mission, which they're not really jumping onto right away. She's got a bounty on her head from her brother, and they go to see the lord of the town who answers to the king of the kingdom, and this lord is Chester Ray Guilford. Guilford or Guilford?
I think it's Guilford.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't have him listed as a character to talk about, but did you guys want to talk about Guilford at all? He's probably my least favorite character in this whole thing.
Just quickly, I kind of appreciated him for the kind of bad guy, kind of good guy role, because he obviously is the lord of the land, and the land seemed to be very peaceful and very prosperous. But then we see some not so great underhanded stuff later. But he seems to be a man of his word. So even if he is a bit underhanded and deceptive, so I don't know. I thought he was a good addition to the cast.
Yeah, I thought that he gave an opportunity to see that there were bigger things going on and people making decisions that are behind the scenes, which was nice to see. But yeah, other than that, I kind of just found him to be an arrogant prick.
Well, I did like that he was almost on par with our main character, unlike Overlord, where there is just nobody on par with him.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Well,
I didn't like him. I thought he is actually the example of what is wrong with the world building to me about the I'm a good guy, I'm a villain, I'm a good guy. Just the fact that like after the big confrontation between him and Diablo, everything just goes back to normal.
It went back to normal, but he never decided to be a good guy after that point. Like he never had any intentions of doing the right thing. He was always going to do things for his own will, and also like.
But there's zero repercussions for him. It's like he got to like step into the villain role for an episode, and then no one cares.
Well, I mean,
who's going to believe him?
Well, like if you think about what happened, though, all it was the elves trespassed on his territory with military forces. That gave him the right to respond.
Right. I get his tactic.
So once he'd performed that tactic and then backed off and chosen not to pursue it any further, I mean, the only repercussions that could have happened is if the king of the elves was pissed off because of his son dying and wanted to do something.
Alicia did make the threat that she was going to tell the king what's going on here.
Right. And he was not afraid of that at all. He was like, go tell him. Who's he going to believe?
Mm-hmm. All right. I don't like it. I don't like him.
No, you don't have to, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to.
I don't know. I found him to be a semi-compelling kind of villain, I guess.
He seemed believable and reasonable to me. Like,
I like this interaction though, because again, it calls out the fact that the person behind Diablo, is just pretending to be Diablo,
right?
Because he comes in, he's like, okay, I got to be Diablo, but this dude is scary as hell, and I have no idea how to talk to him. He's like, you should totally just back off, man. That kind of stuff. And I like, those are my favorite parts when he's like, I gotta play Diablo, but I have no idea what Diablo would say here. This is a really complicated situation. That's my favorite scenes. Then, so he kind of gives him more information about the elves and the upcoming war, and he calls in Alicia, who is a knight from the kingdom, who asked to join them and help out with the situation. And she is a major character for us. So what did you guys think of Alicia?
I have mixed feelings. I wish it was a little more. The first couple episodes we have with her, like there's no foreshadowing, or at least I didn't see any. And then all of a sudden you just had this like right turn of like I hate the world, and
the foreshadowing's in the opening credits. Other than that, no.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't. Yeah, that part I didn't like about her. I also didn't like the redeeming arc.
Oh,
like
I hated that.
That just didn't make a lot of sense to me.
We can't throw away a vital character.
Yeah, because then we would really have too many lollies. Anyways,
oh, she's no lolly. She's
no. That's what I'm saying. Without her, we would just have too many.
Yeah,
we had to balance it out, right?
Away some of the curves.
That's right.
I thought she could have. She's a missed opportunity. She could have had a lot of. She was a product for really great story arc, and I don't think they delivered with it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of see a lot of the characters as missed opportunities. But I really enjoyed when she showed up and she had a different personality than the others, and it was very clear how different it was. But I was frustrated with him being so intuitive about her personality and able to point it out. I mean, he's socially inept and doesn't have a lot of practice in dealing with other people because he's isolated himself a lot, but he's still like cutting to the bone with everything with her from the beginning in his comments, like, oh, you're the girl that pushes herself too hard, or you expect too much out of yourself, and all these other things. And it all combined together to make her, especially when she made that right turn. And then I really detest this character by the end. Initially, I thought she was going to be okay, but I absolutely detest her now.
For me, that twist was so out of left field that in the scene they finally do hint at it. I think it's the first thing they really do hint at it. She's standing over 2 dead bodies, right? And she's got blood off her sword. And I wrote down, a mysterious figure kills people. And then after that, I'm looking at the note like, that should look like Alicia. That'd be really weird. Why would she be doing that? And then I looked at the opening credits again. And I'm like, oh, okay. I guess they have been hinting at that, but not in the story at all. I liked her at first. I liked that there was a person who didn't want to bang Diablo every 5 seconds.
She wanted it. She just hadn't figured it out yet.
Stop. A woman on the show.
Can we talk about consent?
If you've seen the outro, she's given consent.
Yeah, I know. So I liked her first character arc, and then when we find out that's all fake, it's like, okay, I don't know why I bothered. And I
like, there's this fairly like decent scene between her and Ren, and she's like, "Here, let me do this little thing on your hand," and it's like, she looked surprised that something happened, as if like, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen. And this whole like interaction between the two, it felt genuine. And
it was our hint.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm looking back and it's like, what was that, like an evil like tracking device that she put on her or something? But the problem was that Ren wasn't looking, and then all of a sudden she's like surprised that this thing happened, and she's, what in the world?
I have no idea what that was. I've wondered the whole time. Maybe it was some kind of recognition, like some spell that was testing to see if she had the demon lord inside her.
I assume now that's had to be what it was.
Yeah, it's so weird.
So she basically joins the party from here on out. They do keep the whole demon lord stuff to a minimum with her. But while they're in town looking for Diablo to get a weaker weapon so he will not kill anyone he fights, especially if he doesn't want to.
I liked that. That was good.
I thought it was charming.
Yeah.
And of course, it had to be enormous, like MMO sized, which I really
it's this huge, gigantic staff,
and everyone's looking at him like, "You are crazy."
Yeah. And it's actually a scythe made of wood, but yeah.
And he uses it like a bat. He doesn't even use the sharp end.
Yeah.
Right afterwards, bounty hunters appear and they capture Shira. And this is where they fight off the bounty hunters. Diablo goes chasing after Shira, tracks her down, but before he can save her, the best
our boy
ever shows up. Emil shows up, saves the day. Because his explanation is great. I can smell a woman when she's in trouble, and everyone's like, "Ew!" He's like, "I'm kidding." But yeah, this is the scene where he's like, "I'm gonna go reform these criminals,
kill us."
And I think this is kind of where Diablo really starts. Like, okay, this guy has come through in a pinch for my ladies, and I think he really starts appreciating them here. But then we get another scene of Alicia, the scene of Alicia being, "Oh, I'm so worthless. I was no help." And Diablo's like, "Who cares if you're worthless? I'm so powerful. Everyone can be worthless." And then they go have food.
Oh my god, I forgot in the first episode the scene where Shira eats.
Oh yeah, Shira's a pig.
Oh my god. I had to call Tanya and I was like, "Hey Tanya, you want to see what this anime is about?" check this out. And then Shira's like at the table with a big sausage sticking out of her mouth. Oh, wow.
At the time, that was surprising. By the end, that seems like one of the most subtle things
innocuous.
in the entire anime. Yeah.
Yep. I called her in for the scene when they were all in the hot spring together too.
So I was on the bus when here's like she's got her arms up like this, and like I'm like going like I can't watch this. Like Reddit saved me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the next episode, Celestine comes with some information on how they can remove the collars, and they have to go to the slave market, which is in town, and they meet the character Midios, who is the slave market owner, and she basically explains that in this world, certain characters can see the flow of magic. We learn Shira has always been able to see the flow of magic because she's an elf, and they teach Diablo basically how to sense the flow of magic through people. I
actually really liked the explanation. The execution was to be inspired.
This is a very gropey scene. This is Fill Me With Your Power. It's so big.
Yes, it's so campy. It's so.
But so past all that, I did love the idea that like these characters in this world have a magic center, if you will. And that these callers intertwine themselves with that those flows of magic so tight and so complicated. That's the reason he can't get it off, is because he has to unwind it. And that kind of strain to do that magically is what's preventing the release of.
Also, it seems to me they're hinting at like you need to be super physically intimate with these characters before you'll be able to access what you need to free them.
Access.
But I honestly think that's where they're going. And I don't just mean physically intimate, but like emotionally, like they have to become waifus and whatnot.
Yes, that's exactly it. What I thought was great about this is that when they were done with this experiment,
right,
he was exhausted and she was energized.
Yeah.
That seems all right.
It seems.
But by the way, can we say that this slave owner was drawn immensely well?
Oh my god!
Wait, at one point Jeremy called her an old hag, and I'm like, "What is an old hag to you?"
Yeah,
holy moly, man!
I thought of it more in this sort of lecherous way, where like she's kind of like the old hag whore that's in charge of the brothel. That's what her slaves looked like to me, like the whole way they were presenting them and everything. And then her whole session of like, yes, fill her with your power more. It's like, okay, she's a freaking hag running a brothel. That's what she is.
All right, man. Okay.
She's a good looking hag, but she's still
comments to Jeremy can be sent to our email, theanimebakaclub@gmail.com.
Have you never seen a hag raven mod?
Okay, hold on. We're gonna push this. We're gonna get past this.
Yeah. Get back on track.
I like the comment, at least in the English dub, when they come in and she's like, "Oh, you want to take those off?" Usually, people show up wanting to put them on, which made it sound like being a slave was awesome and like something that characters desired.
I assumed she was talking about the person putting them on someone else, not necessarily putting them on themselves. But all of the slaves that were on display were quite happy drinking their tea and kicking their feet around.
Right.
So you could be completely right there.
And the fact that she didn't say it to Diablo, she said it to Rem, who had a collar on.
That's true.
That's why I interpreted it that way. But you could be right.
Yeah.
Afterwards, we meet back at the hotel, back at the end, Kira, who is Shira's brother, comes back for her. He's all like, "I'm a magical wood elf and I have a flute." Hi, everybody.
And he's being so nice. He's nice to everyone.
Like, what? You don't want to come with me? That's totally cool. I showed up here just to make sure of that. I want to make sure everything's okay. I'm going to come back tomorrow, see if she still doesn't want to come with me, and then I'll leave forever. I totally promise.
Yeah, that was like, okay, magic flute. He's going to.
Yeah, it's Pied Piper.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask you guys, because that actually brings up a question. Diablo doesn't recognize this flute.
Right.
Do you think, is Diablo in the game world, or is this just a very similar world?
it feels like a similar world because there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't work the same.
Could it be possible this is future DLC that he's just accessing without knowing it?
He does make comments about things like that later.
Could be.
Maybe it's everything they ever wanted to add or were going to add. It's all already here.
Or like it's in the
like
game code but never actually released to the public kind of thing. And it's something I wonder with a lot of these isekais. In our minisode, remind me to bring up the topic, how do they end? How do these stories end satisfyingly?
They usually don't. First season Sword Art Online ended satisfyingly.
You're right. And Log Horizon ended, right?
I didn't finish the second season yet, so I don't know.
Okay, for the minisode, guys, next week we'll be talking about that minisode. Okay.
Shameless self-promotion.
This is where we learn that Shira wants to open a coffee shop, and she teaches Rem how the touching the magic ball works. Trying to keep it PG here, man. Keep it together. And then we get one last shot of Kira, and we see he's like, "Oh, I'm totally gonna get you, my pretty."
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's right. And he's like trying to pretend to be asleep, but then they're like pushing against him, keeping him awake. Never mind. Let's keep going.
As they're resting on the bed, like, leave me alone.
Yep.
Which again is like, wait, I thought you would. Okay, so the next day, while Rem and Alicia go into town, Diablo and Shira wait for Kira to tell him to go home. Then we come to the potion making scene. And just to set this up, this is a scene where Diablo is trying to use his skills from the game to create potions, but he doesn't know how to actually do it in the game. And because Shira is bending over in her pajamas in front of him, he gets so distracted by her boobs that his body uses muscle memory and does it masterfully. So
I thought this was very clever and well done.
I love that idea, yeah.
No, it was pretty great because he complains about, well, these don't look like the icons, and it's not like I can click and drag because they're in my hands physically. I thought that was great.
Yep.
And also, like, it was pretty. So this is another one that I was like, okay, we should watch it in both dub and sub,
right?
Because in sub, it felt very, he's oogling, but he makes the comment like, all right, focus on my hands, not my eyes.
Yeah, he's just heard to know.
But in the dub, it felt creepy and like super silly. Like it was definitely silly in the sub, but it was just like super silly and like a little over the top. And I was just like weirded out by it from the dub. It was weird.
Okay. In the uncensored beginning of the episode, you know how you said that it would have like a 5-second scene? It was just this. It was just her boobs bouncing for 5 seconds.
Geez.
And
Yeah,
so I knew something good was coming. And when this scene happened, yes, it paid off, but only because that silliness foreshadowed itself. Otherwise, I don't think this scene would have been, I mean, like you said, just that simple statement where he was like, you know, telling her, look at my hands, not my eyes. He doesn't want her to know what he's doing. So it's very, the dub wasn't like that, huh?
So it's very similar in the dub because he's like, the thing is he's very much more immature about it. He's like, I'm going to see the top of Mount Titties and saying crass stuff like that. And that's much more what happens in the dub in this.
Yeah,
is that
no, he didn't.
Jason actually is right. They handle it almost in a much more immature and silly way with these sexual things. The way I was hearing it, and especially with little comments, especially when characters weren't on screen, characters were making little comments all the time. Not just Red, every character making little comments all the time. And it struck me as almost very similar to Ghost Stories, where the dubbers are like, this is so immature and so stupid. Let's just be stupid.
Let's just
let's just
That's interesting.
Be dumb. So when he's like, I'm gonna see the top of Mount Titties, I'm like, yeah, that is much stupider than they play it off. But this is a stupid 13-year-old anime or 13-year-olds. I don't mind that they're making him react like a dumb 13-year-old instead of a more mature man. And honestly, not specifically this scene, but there's those little comments. I found hilarious. There's one coming up with Kremsky. I gotta mention. I don't know if it could be in the sub, but Rem always had little stingers coming in when she's not on screen. He's always making little jokes, and a lot of times I didn't know who was making the comment because it was just so quick and so fast, and the character would be off screen because that way the dub could get it in. I really liked the dub because of that, and because I felt they took this. Okay, I can't believe we have to dub this. Let's just, you know what? Let's do it. And I've noticed that dub companies are, especially Funimation, is being more loose with that. Dragon Ball Super dub is very meta now. Like they're very like, hey, why don't we charge up again? Or I'll bet Goku wants to fight him first. And like they're making comments like that now in Dragon Ball Super. And I just feel like the dubbers are like, yeah, I get the memes and stuff, and we're gonna just go with it.
That's fair.
That's interesting.
That, like I said, I've seen the first episode both times, and I decided to go with the dub, but I know the sub is the original version, and that is the true version, so I am the non-believer.
For me,
you can improve. If you improve it, it's worth checking out. You almost have convinced me to try watching this again.
For me, it was less about like, True Blood. I really, really, really liked both the Real World and the Diablo voice actors. I thought they were both great, and also I felt they fit the character better than the voice actors for the dub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ren, and like I said, there's reasons I liked it, and there's definitely reasons why you didn't like it. I know if I start with one, I usually prefer that. Like, I can't watch Food Wars anymore in dub because I started in sub, and that's their voices to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before Kira arrives, he plays his flute, and it brainwashes Shira, or mind controls her, and so she decides to leave with her brother. And Diablo does not take this well because one of the reasons he is so socially awkward is because as a child, his friends, or what he thought was his friends, rejected him. Basically, we get
very well played his friend, and then for their own game.
Right. So he kind of just becomes a lump on a log.
Actually, I felt the reaction was like really appropriate because you've got this guy playing this part. Like, it's not him. He's playing this part. He's like hyped himself up. He's like doing this thing and everything's going his way. And then all of a sudden, one of the closest people to him in this world decides to walk out. And you've already given your word that if they decide to do that, you're just going to respect it. And yeah, I could see somebody just kind of losing all, like just basically going into a depression, like a grief depression. Mm-hmm. Just being like, you know what? I need some time to myself. And just like, he just goes to bed.
Does he cry in the sub?
He did not, but Ren was like, what are you going to do? And he's like, sleep.
He cried for a moment in the dub. Like you hear him start to cry when he's kind of like curling into a ball on the bed right before Rem comes in. So yeah, Rem basically gives him the motivational speech. Like, she's our friend. We need to go get her.
I'm so glad it didn't sound like that in the sub.
No.
So she convinces him. Poor Shira is being tortured by her brother, interrogated. He's like, tell me all the things he made you do.
God.
Make me do anything, idiot.
I laughed so hard when the slime came out.
The slime.
Oh my God. Just like the lines were so hysterical because she's like, it's a slime. It's going to melt me and eat me. No, it only eats fabric. Oh no. Oh my God.
Only eats fabric.
From that, you can probably decide what happens next, because it does happen next. Until Diablo finally does arrive with Alicia and Ren and stops him.
I did love the fact that there were these explosions outside. He's like, what's that? Oh, well, I've got business to do. And then he like shows up. He's like, where did you come from? And Diablo's like, didn't you hear that? Like, I've been coming for like 20 minutes now.
I set the whole forest on fire, man.
Yep.
What do you mean? Why? How did I get here?
So they start battling, and so Kira pulls out the weapon, the world-ending weapon of the elves, and it's this giant Hydra summon.
I liked this fight.
This was a cool looking Hydra. I haven't seen Hydra.
I made a note, like, that's a cool Hydra. The way its mouth splits way down its neck. It was very cool looking.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never seen it before. He didn't even know this kind of thing was in the game, so he doesn't know its abilities. He's a little worried about fighting it. But Shira gives him the hint, like, you just have to destroy its core. and Kira's like, what does that matter? The core is moving throughout the body. And Diablo's like, yeah, that's what the cores do in this game. I'm used to that. And so he zaps the thing with lightning and fries everything inside of it and kills it.
Yep.
But it was a very cool fight because it was all elemental damage, so there was no magic to reflect, and because he didn't know, and there was something about he's weak to elemental damage or something like that specifically is weak for him.
Right, because he reflects magic and he has a high physical resistance.
Right.
So elemental's the only thing he doesn't. Yeah.
So it seems so weird to me to have elemental damage that isn't strictly magical. It's always seemed weird to me, but I mean, I understand it, but it's a per game thing. It's just always. Right.
And I think it's the anime, like, we got to make something that can get past that reflect that still looks cool. He is going to kill Kira, and then Shira and one of the loyal elf soldiers stop him. And so he lets Kira go, but then Kira gets his head cut off by Guilford, who shows up, finds out was like, I was totally using this to just wipe out the elves. This is perfect. And you were supposed to kill him. I'll do it. And you all need to get out of my way. Also, I'm capturing the elf princess.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts Diablo in a bubble, which is again something he's never seen, right?
Right.
And he has to use the magic thread thing, and he manages to get out, and he fights Guilford. I like that the thing that Guilford has over him is speed. That does seem to be one of Diablo's weaknesses. Is if you're,
because he's a mage,
right? If you're super fast, he can't. He has strategies for it, but it's kind of the one thing he's not great at. So I like that he's not so overpowered that there's not at least one thing you can find against him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was running low on MP because he just blasted this Hydra thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He manages to tactically beat him using mines placed in the ground and like
PvP tactics. He called that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the fight, he doesn't kill him, and he's like, yeah, I'm just bored. It's not worth my time. And he does this a couple times in the anime. Whenever he doesn't want to kill someone, he uses the Diablo persona to be like, I'm so powerful that I haven't even been trying this whole time, even if he has, with the hope that the person he just beat will be like, well, then I guess it's worthless trying to try.
Mm-hmm. I kind of wrote that off as a sort of, this will cause bigger problems if I kill the person governing this region. The king's going to probably have to send someone new. There'll be inquiries. It's going to be a bigger issue. So it would be more effective if I just intimidate him and leave him alive.
So here's the question. And me and Jeremy had a little bit of argument here, but it's time to actually bring this out into the open. What is his moral stance on things like killing and stuff? Because in my interpretation of this anime, I saw him as a guy who didn't want to kill unless he absolutely had to. I do agree that he will absolutely kill if you mess with his friends and stuff.
Yep.
He doesn't have a problem with killing, but if he can get away with not killing, he will totally take that route.
I think he only takes that route on something he personifies, because he's so used to killing monsters and monsters and monsters that if it's a monster like the Hydra, he doesn't. It's not even a second thought. But like Kira, because he's something he can personify. He even hesitated when he was like, hey, I need to end you because you're an evil person. And he hesitated long enough that Shira was able to stop him. If he just wanted him dead like any other monster, he wouldn't have even said a speech or anything. He just would have annihilated him. And I think that's, for me, that's the biggest difference between when he does kill and when he doesn't. Is it something he can personify? Because I think there is that big disconnect when you're playing a video game, that if it's just monster and you don't have to give it any sort of agency. It's just something in your way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think that because the first time that we get a chance to see him sitting on his throne in the game, it's a married couple that come in, or at least maybe they're not married, but at least in the game they're married.
It was a couple, though. You're right.
Yeah, it was a couple that come in to challenge him, and he's like, "This will teach you to bring love into the game, annihilation." Right, and so I thought that kind of gave us an impression of the kind of person that he was. Like, when he's in his game mode, he wants to be taken seriously. Like, he wants to be seen as the demon lord. And when it comes to touching his possessions, the two girls, which he calls them that all the time, he got pissed, so pissed, like seeing red, raging around. And I didn't see a hesitation so much with Kira as camera pacing is what I saw. I thought that it was just kind of a slowdown to show us that Shira quickly jumped in the way. And I thought for sure that he would kill Kira. I kind of hoped that he would. I thought that would make a more compelling character. And so whenever the girls are in danger, I kind of think it seems like he would hang on to that, whether they're from a villainous human or whether it's from beasts. And so there's a scene later where one of the girls is essentially killed. And the person responsible for making that happen is just completely forgiven. And I think that it's so much a polar opposite of what he's displayed previous to that it doesn't make sense how freely he forgave in that situation. Especially when in that situation, forgiving her means another 4 boobs to add to the harem. This seems contrived at that point.
Okay. I don't think we're going to reach a consensus on this, so this might be a good one for the audience to weigh in on their interpretations. So after beating Guilford and basically sending him home with his tails between his legs, he is MP drained again, and this is the scene where Sylvie brings him MP booze, and he
this oh my god.
I felt uncomfortable with this scene, honestly.
Yep. Yeah, I did too.
This is probably the one I was like, oh, this is rough. This is a rough one.
Mm-hmm.
Being drunk is not consent, people.
No.
Okay. Okay. 2 killers stand over their victims. I did not realize that Alicia was the killer until later when I wrote. I think Alicia was that killer. So Alicia returns home and she talks to another of the Holy Knights named Sadler. This is kind of one of our villains for the ending arc. What do you think of him?
I think the writers tried really hard to make a compelling character, and he just ended up being an evil a-hole. And I didn't care for him as a villain or as a character.
It's kind of like with a lot of these characters, Sadler included. They had a great idea and they had the fortitude to begin displaying the character and developing the character. But then at some point, they just kind of lose their momentum and it just kind of turns into an avalanche rolling downhill. And Sadler's no different. He starts out really interesting. I liked where he was coming from and I liked how his abilities were all a lie. And yet he deluded himself into believing that he's a god among men because he's so perfect in every way. And all this other silly stuff that has made him interesting. And then as soon as a situation happens where this could really get interesting, he just kind of goes crazy, like becomes Kira. And I would have loved to see more of the intelligent side of him.
I agree with everything you guys are saying. I will say they did a good job of making him so creepy and vile that it was very satisfying to watch him die.
I'd agree with that.
Especially like it was not a painless death. It was very gruesome, and it was like, I'm okay with that. You totally got that coming. Because they actually got a little graphic with his sadistic nature and like how far he was willing to take stuff. So I'll give him that, but he was kind of a one-note villain by the end.
It's kind of the same note that we had for Kira and for the evil mage. Like all three of those villains, when they get to the latter half of their character arc, it becomes the same person.
Yeah, I see that.
Mm-hmm.
Shira is practicing summoning. This is where we learn about the summoning ritual. You put a stone in your mouth and you kiss them, and that's the enslavement part. I don't understand why you have to enslave a bird.
It's a summon.
But is
You
the
never
bird,
played like
is the bird consenting?
the Final Fantasy summons, like you have to go and get Ifrit. And...
If you eat chicken, you don't get to ask that question.
Yeah, and it's literally the same as catching a Pokemon, right? Like I put you in the ball, you now belong to me. I mean, that's basically what she's doing.
There's fan art where Ash is kissing on his Pokemon.
Okay,
I'm sure of it.
You look at what you want to look at.
No. I'm just throwing it out there. I know it exists. It has to.
So they decide to go bathe.
Of course.
There's another one where Diablo suddenly gets prudish because they're like, let's all bathe naked together. And he's like, I'm going to hide behind a rock.
Yeah.
And then stressing the entire time. Oh, I want to look.
Yeah.
If you want to see some crazy boob physics, though.
Oh my God. This was awesome.
Yank, stretch. Wow.
Okay, this was great. I was laughing.
It's like
at this.
that hurts so bad.
Yes.
But Edelgard actually shows up in this scene, and she grabs Ren, and she's like, I think there's something going on here. And she's like, wait, you have the Demon Lord in you, which causes Ren to have to confess to Shira, okay, yeah, I do have the Demon Lord in me. And Shira's cool with it because, of course, she is. She probably doesn't even know what's happening.
Yeah, she's probably just stupid to understand.
I thought this was an interesting twist, though, because Edelgard's like, yeah, everything you think you know about how the Demon Lord gets here is not what it happens.
Yeah, just wait. Just wait.
But she says, look, I want the Demon Lord to be resurrected. You want it out of you. I'll show you how to, I'll show you what the one thing that makes us both happy.
Win-win, buddy.
Right. To Diablo, that means he can fight it. And to Edelgard, who Diablo has told her he's a demon lord, right? Which is kind of confusing to her, especially with how much power he has. And like, I know what the demon lord is. How could he be a demon lord? So I think she wants them to battle too. I think she wants the true demon lord to smite the faker. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone, even though they're on opposite sides. This actually worked in my mind, even though I thought it almost shouldn't. But I was like, that kind of works. I think. Yeah,
I liked this.
No, the way they built this up to this particular thing, definitely paid off.
And then back in town, they rerun into Alicia, and she warns them about Sadler, but they still end up running into him. I did like this guy's hunting for people who worship demon lords. How do I talk to him? I am the demon lord. Not that. What did I say? He claims to be basically a servant of God, but he thinks he's a god. And he's like, look, I use my divine powers, and he grabs Ren through magic and forces her down. And Diablo realizes, oh, that's just a regular spell he's using. And then he tries to turn Diablo to stone, and because Diablo wears his reflect ring, he turns to stone. And but he lets Sadler go, and Alicia's like, whoa, shouldn't we totally not let him go?
Yep.
Alicia is always the one who's like, shouldn't we kind of be killing these people that we're beating?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then they decide to tell Alicia the truth about the demon lord.
Well, depending on how long Alicia has been working with the others.
Since at least the guy stabbed himself with a knife and turned into a fallen.
Right. Yeah. So she knows where the demon lord is within Red. Meaning she knows that if Sadler kills her, game over. Like she is actively trying to get her to this ritual. So that would be her reason for you should kill Sadler. Because it was confusing to me at first. Because I was like, well, aren't you both Imperial Knights? Kind of on the same side, even though he's like crazy.
It seemed like he was a rabid dog in her eyes, and that's what I thought was going on. And she's like, no, he's dangerous, but it'd be really bad if a fellow Imperial Knight took him out. Maybe a Demon Lord should take him out. That'd be good. That'd be okay. Yeah.
Now, I've seen my fair share of ecchi anime in my life.
Have
Yes,
you?
you
Have you tried?
I'm not ashamed of who I am. I enjoy the carnal desires as much as the next guy. I have never seen an anime go this far. So they go to the summoning tower, meet with Edelgard, and she basically gives some very obscene instructions on how to insert magic into Ren.
I didn't believe you at first when we were talking about this.
Yeah. Not only is it like super far forward without, but then she uses a hand sign that is extra worse. And the dub actually turns into it, and he Diablo starts screaming, like, how does she know how to do that? How does she know that hand position?
Yeah, nothing like that is said in the sub.
I went back and watched it too. It's not there.
Yeah, because it was very much, what he did to Shira, place your hand on the stomach and do your thing. And then she's like, no, you got to get closer to the magic. And he's like, well, how am I going to do that? Oh, make a hole in her stomach. Well, I kill her. Well, there's other holes.
Yeah, I didn't expect this.
It threw me because I was like, okay, we're on that ecchi line like through most of the anime, and then he's like,
I thought that
no,
and they go all the way with it too.
Yeah.
However, when what you do see and the fact that there's hand obviously motion going on, I'm like, are you kidding me?
and he's going Super Saiyan at this point too.
Yeah, he's screaming and going Super Saiyan, and there's energy colors.
There's two lines I want to call out here. When he asked her if it's okay, she's like, yeah, but don't F it up.
Oh my god.
It was so not that in the sub.
No, not at all.
And then when they tell him what he has to do and Rem gives consent, he's like, oh, sure, she's fine about it, but what about me?
Yeah,
I thought that was funny. He doesn't say that. No. And so they bring Krebskulm, the Demon Lord, back into existence. And at first we see this giant monstrous form that has been in the opening credits this whole time.
Yeah.
And then there's like a pop and we get a different form. And I swear to God, in the dub, and this could be in the sub, but Clem says, is there coffee?
Nope, that's not.
I wish we had.
That was pretty funny.
I did love that scene because it was like just like smoke everywhere and magic going everywhere and a beam up into the sky and then.
Yep.
So what happens is basically this giant demon lord turns into this little demon girl,
and something's missing.
Yeah, and not only is she hardly dressed, but her memory's really messed up, and she's like, "What am I here to do again?" Yeah. And they give her cookies. Shira shares her cookies. It might be biscuits in the sub.
Yeah, it's biscuits.
It's cookies in the dubbing, and she's like, she's basically Cookie Monster, guys. I want cookies. And she's like, my mission in this world is to eat the cookies. I thought this was really good, and actually, one thought I had was like, man, I almost wish this wasn't an ecchi anime that had that super uncomfortable intro to this scene, because this is actually really good potential and really good storytelling, and I'm into this.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you have this huge looming threat that ends up being, it's still a huge looming threat, but at the moment it's kind of manageable.
Yeah.
And if we keep it manageable, I think things might go well.
Yep. It's almost like a Dragon Maid spinoff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they rename her Clem, and they decide to bring her back to the city to get more cookies. And like we said, Edelgard's like, well, I mean, if that's what the Demon Lord wants to do, that's what I'm going to help the Demon Lord do, I guess. They run into another servant, Ulrichs, who's like a big owl beast man. And he sees Clem and is like, no, we're going to just put that down and get another Demon Lord and run into the world. That's not going to work for us. And they have to battle him. And he, Diablo knows this character. He's like, oh my gosh, that's one of the big bosses, right?
Yeah.
He was subservient to like one of the other demon lords. Right.
The one that he he
The
beat.
first person to defeat. Yeah.
That's
In
right.
fact, the owlbear recognizes the reflect.
Right.
Yeah, the ring, yeah.
That's right. So they do manage to drive him away, but one thing that happens is Ren saves Clem. This is important because, you know, Ren has been suffering for her family for generations because of this curse, and now that this curse is in the world, she's not really sure how to feel about it, especially since it's not violent, it's not world ending, it's not trying to kill everybody.
In fact, I want your cookies.
And
Yeah.
and Shira's clearly befriending her. And so Ren goes and saves her. And this kind of starts building a bond between them, which I thought was another interesting play on this stereotype.
Mhm.
And it affects Edelgard as well. Edelgard's like, oh, well, that's the person I need to serve, and they're saving the person I need to serve.
Mhm.
And this guy that I normally call ally is not only trying to kill me, but trying to kill the thing I need to serve. So yeah, it was a neat turn on, turning that villainous stuff on its head.
Yeah, I liked that.
In fact, the only person upset with all this is Alicia.
Yeah.
Right.
Which that's also well written.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too.
I almost kind of had wished we hadn't been given more hints up to that point, because that would be really cool. Like, why is Alicia so upset about this? But we'd already kind of seen her standing over dead bodies and talking about mortal races and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then Diablo is pooped again. And look, I know she's an ancient demon lord, but she looks 12. I'm not comfortable watching her rub herself until everyone's super recharged.
Yeah. Okay. One of the issues I have, especially with this character, was that, well, specifically with this character, not especially, they were even calling her a child. Like, people were saying, yeah, the child was over there. This person left with Rem and a child over there. And it's like, okay, so it's very clear that it's a kid. Like, yes, she's not technically, but it's super clear that she's a kid. Even you as an anime, you're trying to present her, making it clear that she's a kid. You can't do this. You can't do both these things.
So let's do general thoughts on Clem here. Any others, Jeremy? Any other besides that creepy factor?
Besides that, I actually really like this character. She's probably one of my favorite characters in this, because she has so much potential, because she's just waiting to blow up, and you never know what's going to set her off. And if she does ever get her memories back, is she going to kind of merge those old memories with the new memories she's made? And what consensus would she come to at that point? She has such a high potential for a complex character. I think she's very interesting that way. Also, what they do with her is very believable. I don't have any problem other than the sexual depictions with her. Otherwise, I think she's actually an entertaining and well-written character.
I would 100% mirror what Jeremy said, which doesn't happen very often. Mark it on your calendars. Yeah, I thought the looming threat, but hey, I love cookies angle was brilliant with this character. Even when she does lose her temper and has to be brought back to her senses, which, well, what's her senses, right? Yeah, I thought she was super interesting.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. The one thing I appreciate they didn't do, they did have people calling her child, which I don't appreciate. I didn't feel like, I was worried they would be like, this is our daughter of this relationship, of this triangle. You know, this is the daughter being added to the group, and then still do sexual stuff.
That would be so much creepier.
They very much folded her in as like a third girlfriend, which is itself like whatever, but way better than Sword Art Online actually has that a little bit with his daughter. She clearly loves her daddy very much with the AI fairy thing.
I remember that one.
It's a little weird sometimes, and I'm not a huge fan of that. So I'm glad they didn't steer into that in this, and I do appreciate that. Okay, so other than that, that horrible cringy scene, Alicia has flashbacks to her past, and Sadler starts getting ready for his revenge. Now turn back to normal. Guys, thoughts on the cookie song? Or did you guys get the cookie song?
Yeah, we got a cookie song.
Okay. That's all.
It was a spelling out biscuits, dropping all vowels. Only using consonants.
Ours had the letter K, meaning cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
They had,
And both B and T were biscuit.
They go and basically tell Celestine like what happened. Like, yeah, we totally summoned the demon lord, and it's totally cool. And she's like, okay, I guess if that's working, that's fine then.
That wasn't believable to me at all.
yeah. And again, missed opportunity with this character.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's inside of her defensive wall, like the most powerful representative of the fallen race or group.
The thing
like,
you're trying to keep out.
Yeah, is in your dome.
Yeah. This is when Alicia makes her move. She takes Clem and Ren and takes them down an alley, and basically is going to try to really awaken the demon lord.
Mm-hmm.
And they get confronted by Sadler, and she says Ren is a total demon worshiper, fallen worshiper.
Yeah.
Basically turning her into Sadler, and so Sadler captures both of them, takes them to his church, and starts torturing Ren in front of Clem. They have a conversation on the way there about like, look, they befriend each other, they bond more, and Clem promises to stay true to who she is now. She won't be the evil monster they believe her to be. She's basically Tokyo Ghoul at this point. So yeah, they torture Ren. That, Clem freaks out. They realize Clem is actually not just a little girl. She's a fallen demon. And they attack her, but Ren gets free and takes the blow instead. And they stab Ren like 12 times. Like 12 different swords. Like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. And so Clem's power awakens. Now, this whole time, Diablo is trying to find them with no luck. This is where he goes to the Adventurers Guild. And probably one of my favorite scenes is when he's like, yeah, I need to stay the Demon Lord, but I need to ask for help, and I don't know how to do those two things at the same time. And he actually gets lucky that a kid runs in with the information he needs, because he actually kind of fails this. He does. And
everyone's like, "You just smile."
Yeah.
In the English dub, Emil says, "Use your words." I really like. And so he starts running off into the right direction, but Krebs' Skull starts attacking the city, and 100 or thousands of Fallen have surrounded the city, and they're trying to get into the barrier, and they're just waiting for their demon lord to smash it open. Alicia then goes and joins them because she didn't want to watch the torture happen, and you find out that she's actually been working with them closely, especially Edelgard, this whole time, which Diablo had figured out already, because when he introduced them, they didn't ask questions or something.
Well, yeah, Edelgard didn't even respond to the fact that someone that she supposedly hadn't met yet and
would just show up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Diablo has to fight Krebscum while Shira is trying to revive Ren with all his healing potions. She gets all the healing potions and stuff.
I think we need to make sure it's clear that Alicia goes to join the Fallen. She goes to Edelgard, like to stand next to her.
Right,
and
she's
then we
with
get
that army outside.
Yeah, we get some exposition that, she's the one that gave the dagger, which turned into Gregor to the mage guy. Like, this is all her machination, and Edelgard is just kind of helping her with the scheme because it would be beneficial to the Fallen to get the Demon Lord to wake up.
It was interesting when she was like, man, because Clem's like, I'll kill you first. She's like, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
It was just interesting that she left the torture chamber because it obviously made her uncomfortable, and she felt some guilt too, though. There was that in that scene. So Diablo fights this giant demon, and he's powerful enough to beat it. He knows that, but he has no healing potions, which he kind of realizes too late. Like, oh yeah, that's right. If I give away all my healing potions, I won't have any for me. He actually starts taking damage. His AoE is so big, though, he has to set down markers to limit it to only where he's at, or he'll destroy a lot of the city. So the entire battle is actually him just running around, touching the ground, like setting up his AoE circle. And then Emil shows up to protect the girls. Rem does revive, and they actually win the fight. they don't kill Krebscomb, but when the giant monster comes out, they're like, "Hey, look, Ren's fine," and Ren holds the giant claw, and she turns back into Clem.
Yep.
And everyone's happy, and then the Fallen have to leave.
Well, and that means that the Fallen never managed to come in, and so they immediately turn on Alicia.
Yeah, I like the cliffhanger of this scene. I don't like how it turns out later, but I like the cliffhanger of the scene of when I say go, and then like Edelgard turning and swinging, and then telling Alicia to run for it.
Yeah,
I thought that was good.
I thought they were both going to try to get away, so it was very confusing to me because I was like, "You can't get through the barrier. What are you going to do? Like, you can't escape."
So Sylvie shows up and is like, "That's the frickin' demon lord. That's got to get the frick out of here." And Diablo comes up with the solution that he will just enslave her as another one of his slaves, which he does. And Sylvie's like, "I guess that is a loophole. I guess I don't know."
And Sylvie's like, no, no, but yes, but no, yes, but no.
That's kind of what I was saying when he kissed her on the mouth instead of on the forehead. No. No.
And it's funny because Sylvie even talks with Guilford about it, and she's like, "I know you know, so just so you know, we have a demon lord here."
Right.
And so the three of them start their lives together until Alicia shows up and takes Shira hostage and demands that Clem heal Edelgard because the demon lord can heal the fallen at will. So she basically Edelgard got the crap kicked out of her by the other fallen, and Clem agrees to do it because Diablo says, "Yeah, we should totally just help her. I mean, she's only betrayed it, tried to kill us twice."
I didn't have as much problem with Edelgard as I did with Alicia.
Alicia tries to commit suicide after this. She surrenders and then tries to commit suicide, and they're like, "No, you're totally a good person. Look, you tried to help your friend."
That's what I'm talking about. Like this one act of compassion to help your friend who you have who knows what kind of relationship with. I mean, it just seems dubious at best.
So okay, hold on. Let's take. I'm going to try and play devil's advocate a little bit.
Okay.
So you've got this person that hates the world because of the way she was treated. She goes on this scheme for basically revenge, but then ends up getting shown all this kindness and love and all goodness from this band of people that she all of a sudden starts to like, right? So then in her final moments, she's like, "I messed up. I need to die to atone." And Diablo goes, "No, that's not how you atone for things. If you want to atone, you actually have to do it. You're finding the easy way out. In fact, you're not doing anybody any good by dying." That's kind of what I took from this whole thing. I get what you're saying, and I actually mostly agree with what you're saying, but looking at it from a different perspective, I can see why he would be like, not only are we missing more of what you got there, but
yeah, exactly.
Besides the you wanted to murder everyone, you've been a part of our party, and I've grown to like you. So, and I want to see you atone for these things and become a better person as part of this party. So that's kind of how I took the whole scene.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just don't think that they can ask for that perspective because they didn't do a good enough job portraying those beats. So like initially, yeah, we don't know what exactly happened. Like why? What did people do that treated her badly? What was so bad? All we know is that she has memories of people not liking her or maybe being too controlling of her or telling her not to do things. They just not accepting her for who she was. But there's absolutely no details in what any of this means. Like you can't get an emotional connection as to her being oppressed. We just have to take it at face value. They say she was oppressed and people didn't treat her well, so that must be there. I don't have any connection to that. And then how long was she with them? Like days? She's only with them for days. So I don't know how she could be so convinced that during that short period of time, they've completely changed her perspective on like they're treating her differently than everybody else. So like,
Well, if her situation was similar to Ren's, where literally everyone she finds distasteful, but then all of a sudden, within days, she comes across the one group of people that actually end up caring about her. I could see how that could change you within days.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I find it difficult even with Rem, and Rem has the excuse of having a demon lord inside her belly. And so like there's a reason why people would treat her badly. But like Alicia, I mean, she's doing amazingly. Is this just like Beauty and the Beast? Belle is amazing and teaching everybody how to read and being an inventor, and so people hate her for it. Like, I don't know why people hate Alicia to make her so sensitive.
I don't even know if it was hate towards her or just hate towards other people. Like, I heard her parents were very racist, and I think that like got to her, and she came to hate her own parents for the way they viewed others.
That's possible.
I think that was in one of the flashbacks.
Yeah, like, I remember that.
Don't like elf people. Don't help elves. And she's like, well, I wanted to help them. And she's like, don't.
But
so I think
it just doesn't seem like enough.
No, it's not. The truth is, the writers want. Look, we need to add more boobs into this harem. We can't just throw these ones away.
Especially for the
truth
final
of everything.
Especially for the final shot of MP
Right.
boost.
Right. Which
oh my god.
Which is what happens next. Everyone forgives everyone. We're all friends. We're all part of this harem. And oh look, Diablo is tired. I guess we're all gonna rub our boobs on him.
We're all gonna get topless and rub our boobs.
All get in on this.
I think they got a little more than that, but anyways.
Yeah.
So, and then we get the final ending scenes of Alicia leaves the city and goes out to redeem through life, and then also Rem and Shiro being jealous that Diablo kissed Clem when he hasn't kissed them in a long time. And then they ask for a kiss, and he's like, "Oh, I'm Diablo. I don't do that kind of stuff."
Yeah.
And that's it.
Thank the Lord.
Let's go to final reviews. Jeremy, you picked it.
Oh my god. This is
that was more accusational than I meant.
I know. This is not what I expected going into this. I didn't do any real research into it, and wow, I really wanted this show to pick one the whole time. Like, pick one. Either go really silly and goofy, or go really interesting and serious. But having the moral conundrum tied to, having Diablo constantly portray himself as somebody who is the victim of every scenario. He's never asked for the situations he's put in, and the things that he has to do in those situations are so extreme that they're incomparable to the more mild, silly manga, things that I like. And so, see, it becomes unbelievable that he can retain his innocence and nobility while performing any of these acts. And because of that, I can't maintain my suspension of belief of his character. And so, yeah, the story's being so campy and so like, oh, the pizza guys arrived, but I don't have any money. Well, maybe you could pay with it for something else. Like that's what the writing felt like the whole time. And all the story arcs just seemed like they were contrived to create those situations. And I'm seriously listening to what you're saying about the dub and the way it was presented. And it sounds more like something I would have liked, actually. Turning it into more comedy and less seriousness. Like, let's just make it a big joke. I probably would have liked that more. But I have to give this a 2. I am really not impressed with it.
Okay, Jason, how about you?
I mirror a little bit of what Jeremy said. It's definitely the pizza guy comes, but there's just zero payoff. Yeah. So it's terrible. But I did find some of the characters redeemable. It's just that harem anime for me. I'm going to give it a 3 because I actually didn't hate my time with it, and nor did I love it. But it was fun. I probably wouldn't recommend it. But.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go at 2, even though I enjoyed the watching of it. I can say that. I just
Kaijo enjoy?
Yeah.
kind of. I don't. I don't really understand who the audience is intended for, because if you can understand all these jokes, then you probably could find more adult content anyway. But I think there's actually potential for a really good story in the plot, but they decided to cover it with the ecchi stuff, and then the ecchi stuff was fine. It's just not. It wasn't good enough to carry the show. I prefer like the stuff in Food Wars where every ecchi thing is the punchline, right? And I like that. Where this was like, okay, we're past the punchline now. We're into creepy. Can we be done? I got it. Yeah, I got it. No, I understand what he's doing to her. I get it. Quit showing the hand motion. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So 2 for me. It's not the worst anime. There's moments. All right. So to wrap up, our next anime is going to be Cells at Work. I'm really excited about this one. I want to watch it for a while. I'm interested how you're going to take it, Jason, because it's a comedy anime. It's basically kind of a monster of the week. There's a new monster every episode they had to face, and it's educational and comedy, and there's not like a storyline really. But everything I've seen so far, I've absolutely loved, so I'm really excited.
I've heard there's pretty good fight scenes too, or fight sequences.
The actions are pretty cool. And if like I've seen doctors and med students talk about like scenes, and this is why he drew this villain this way, and it's like that's really cool. So we should definitely get some supplementary information, because I think that will enhance the viewing. Dr. Sick Notes on YouTube has been reviewing episodes. He's really good. Anyway, so we're watching that, and we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks. If you would like to comment on anything we've watched, anything jiggly you saw, you can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, our email, theanimebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast. Don't forget, next week, Minisode Isekai anime. This will probably come up again, this anime, and we're looking forward to talking about that. And then I think we need to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.